Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Your Brand Speaks Volumes, What Does Your Story Tell? By Quicksell. Today you are listening in using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit questions to Cliff by typing them into the questions pane on the control panel, and they will be answered at the end of the webinar. Now, for those of you who haven't jumped in on one of Cliff's webinars previously or didn't get the chance to meet him at Convex, I'll just run through a little bit of background information on Cliff. Cliff Quicksell Junior MAS Plus has been involved in the promotional products and sportswear industry for the past 35 years. During his tenure, he has achieved the MAS Plus professional designation, Master Advertising Specialist. He has been actively involved in PPAI, the International Trade Association for the Promotional Products Industry, serving on various committees, as a facilitator at all PPAI and ASI shows, and as a member of PPAI's Ambassadors Speakers Bureau for over 15 years. And now I'll hand over to Cliff. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone here that's on the call. I know that you all are very, very busy and under the gun because of the season, but I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Our topic today is about your brand. And I love this topic. It speaks volumes. What story does yours tell? The reality is that small businesses are moving at such a rapid pace that oftentimes they don't take the time to sit and think about their brand, think about the message that they're conveying to their customers and prospects. And they're so busy that they just don't have the time, or it appears that they don't have the time to take the time out to really look at what they're doing in order to make a compelling message to the client. I think oftentimes, and I've been guilty of it as well, that we think that we're doing a great job of doing this, but what happens is, as I mentioned, we get so caught up in the day-to-day that we miss out, and it gets behind us and we don't think about it. So today we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about your message, who you are, and a lot of this is we're going to talk about today is rhetorical. I'm not going to have answers for you because for each of you it'll be different, but you're going to have to make this determination. So hopefully through this part of this being rhetorical is it'll make you think a little bit. When you get a time to breathe and pause, you'll be able to put this in your diary and really go through the process of making sure that your brand is very consistent. That is one of the biggest challenges. Inconsistency in a brand really does cause lots of challenges when it comes to your end users and prospects. In a study stated by McKinsey and Company, they said that companies who have a strong, and here's the key part, consistent brand are 20% more successful than those that are weak or inconsistent. So it's something for you to consider. And I think a lot of times we don't think about that. Is our brand consistent? Is it not consistent? But we're going to go through these different steps. We're going to talk a little bit about your collateral material, and that goes through your in terms of your web presence, your social media, everything that really speaks you. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to also talk about your marketing efforts. If you say one thing as a marketer and turn around and do something else, what story does that really tell? And it's really important for you to, keep this in mind. Other thing in terms of your branding is your skill set. If you tell people that you're creative and innovative and you're not, and you've heard me talk about this in other webinars, and if you've heard me speak at Convex, you know that I'm a big proponent about, what you preach and what you say has to be consistent throughout. And not only with your presentation skills, but also the way you interview your customers and ask those questions. And lastly, your follow-up or your follow-through and your deliverables. What you say you're going to do, how does that come out on the other end? And not only, because at the end of the day, the sale is not over really until the money is in the bank. But again, nowadays, with all of the people that are out there that are vying for the same business that you are, it's very important that you do take a pause and look at your brand throughout to make sure that it is sending a consistent message, because inconsistency definitely will create massive, massive confusion. And obviously that's one of the things that we want to avoid. So what is your message? If somebody asks you, what is it that you do? What would you tell them? And if they were to take that one-on-one conversation that you had with them, and they were to go to your social media, and they would go to your website, and they would see your collateral material, would it be consistent? How about if you have staff, are they articulating your message, your vision, your brand in the way you want it done? When somebody picks up the phone, the message, the way it's being conveyed. If somebody asks one of your staff members, what is it that you do? What is it that your company does? Would it be consistent? Is it compelling? So I always ask this question, what makes you unique? Why would somebody decide to pick up the phone, give you a call, and write you a check? Because without a compelling brand, without a compelling message, which is all part of the brand, you cause confusion, and you can lose customers in a big way. Years ago, I'm sure many of you work with some top organizations in both in the Australasian market. And some of these top companies spend thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop a brand, to develop brand standards, to create an image. And they do that for a reason. It's not by mistake. If you look at any of the major corporations, they build this brand standard around their culture. What is their culture? What does it say? So again, this all ties directly into how you market your company, your unique selling proposition, what makes you different and unique. So when you stop to think about it for a minute, and again, I would love for you to write down some notes. Take some notes and say, let's look at your message. What is it? And then get your arms around that in a big way, and also your staff as well. When you look at your collateral material, this is a good example. This is a fellow speaker, Rich Lucia. And one of the things that you see about his brand is that everything is consistent. His collateral, his one sheet, his note cards, his business cards, even his book cover, everything is a consistent brand. And I think, I know through statistics and things that I read, that and even with my own situation in terms of being a speaker and a consultant and whatnot, I think that this gives a certain comfort level to an end buyer, especially when they're dealing with you on a certain level. I mean, look at brands like Nike, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. There's that consistency. People look for that brand to be a certain way. If you walked into a Nike store, or better yet, let's say a McDonald's, and the beauty about McDonald's is everything about their brand is consistent. The look, the colors, the food, everything is delivered in the same manner. The way the operators and the way the staff are all dressed and uniformed, everything is consistent. So again, when you start looking at all of these things and how they play into the overall image that you're creating, it really does speak tons of volume, and it's really important. When we start talking about your web presence, if you've heard me speak before, it was interesting. A friend of mine, Bobby Lehue, did some research, and in one of his presentations, he talked about how end buyers actually make 75% of their buying decisions before they pick up the phone. Or if you've reached out to them and you've sparked their interest with some type of marketing that you've sent to them, And then all of a sudden they go to the website and it's inconsistent, you've lost them. I know that this happened to a very good friend of mine that worked literally for 7 to 8 months to get into this one customer. And the guy said, okay, I'll have a meeting with you. Let's do this. And so the couple days before he was going to go into the meeting, his end buyer called him and said, look, I think I'm going to have to cancel the meeting. He says, well, something happened? Or he goes, yeah, I went to your website and all the collateral material you sent me and the great marketing piece that you sent me they're all good. And you were talking about how innovative and creative you were. And that's what we were looking for. But yet when I took a stroll at your website, you're a promotional products company. And we already deal with 2 or 3 of those and we don't need another one in our stable. The guy lost the deal. He even lost the opportunity to go in to talk to the client. So again, if the message is inconsistent, then you're going to lose people in a big way. So when you look at your website, your social media, and folks, even down to the coloring, the brand, the fonts, the images, the photography, the advertisements that you use. I have folks that I know that are bragging all the time about how innovative and creative and unique they are, but they send out flyers about, we have these pens on sale. The reality is it gets lost in the customer. The customer gets confused. So it's very important for you to take the time to take a step back and look at all these things. I'm going to say this throughout the course of this presentation because I think it is very important. I encourage you to take every bit of your collateral material, your website, your social media pages, print everything out, all of your brochures, your promotional merchandise that you put your logo on, everything, set it all out and really take a hard look at it. Set it out and take a look at it and say, is this brand consistent? Is there any confusion here? Am I saying one thing in my messaging and then delivering something else, or at least articulating something else to my end users? So it's really, really important. I encourage you to look at enhancing your brand by upgrading your social media, your websites. And in the time that I had in my company, I literally changed my brand, my logo. In 11 years, I changed it 3 or 4 times, only because I had to stay consistent. Now, there are certain brands, i.e. Coca-Cola, that have never really changed the look of their brand. They've made some modifications on certain things that they've done. But I would say that you look at any of the major brands, a lot of them have taken great leaps to stay current. Microsoft, and we'll see some examples of that coming up. But it's important that everything looks the same. Looks consistent. Interestingly, I had a friend of mine, Willie Jolly, who's a motivational speaker, and I sent him an email saying, hey, thanks a lot for talking to me the other day at the event. And on the back of my card, it says, I look for any criticism or critiques to help me grow my business. Well, he calls me up and he says, Quicksell, I need to tell you something, man. I'm going to tell you this one time and I'm not going to charge you for it, but your website actually stinks. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you have your logo bigger than life. He goes, your brand is not your logo, my friend. You are the brand. People buy you, not your logo. They want to hear you. They want to see your voice. Excuse me. They want to hear your voice. They want to see who they're buying, not a logo. It really gave me cause for sincere pause on what did I need. And I will tell you that I took that to heart. Called my web guy. I said, I want you to pull my website down. And we went back and we did a complete rework on this website. And in 2 weeks, we relaunched it. And it was unbelievable how the traffic increased dramatically. Because when I started looking at my brand, my collateral material that I handed out, and all of these things, it was all over the board. My e-blast, my blog, everything was all over the board. So I had to take, and I'm very passionate about this because I see how detrimental it was to me not having a brand that was unique and consistent, but it was, like I said, all over the place. So I had to take steps to move it forward. And I encourage you to do the same as well. So when we start talking about your skills, and people don't believe this, but the way you communicate, how creative or innovative you are, your presentations, how you interview your customers, all of these skills are a total reflection on your brand. And people notice this. I remember years ago, my dad, God rest his soul, he said that for me, when I had talked with a salesperson, one of the keys that I look for in their presentation skills that really tells me a lot about them and their company is, do they do their homework? Do they know my business? Do they take the time to know my business before they come in here and start asking me questions? And to me, I just thought that that was sage advice. So when we start talking about your skills, what do you do to hone your skills? Oftentimes we think the OJT, or on-the-job training, is the best way to hone our skills. No, as a speaker, I literally belong to 2 Toastmasters groups. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Toastmasters, but it's a great opportunity for people that present. Even if you're not a speaker, I highly recommend it for you. But if you're not a speaker, whatever, you're making presentations, you're in front of people, you have to ad lib, you have to speak on the fly, you have to do all of these things to be convincing, to be compelling when you're talking to a customer. So what do you do? Other than the day-to-day ritual thing on the phone and making your presentations, to enhance your presentation skills? Do you know that it is imperative when you're questioning a client to have 40 questions prepared for a 20-minute interview with a customer, asking them deep questions, sound questions that are going to really draw out the big, because people see through all of that fluff, if you will. So it is important, and believe me, every single thing that you do in your business, the way you operate, communicate, talk, answer the phone, it's a total reflection on your brand. When you go to a show, and this is one of the things that I'm a big fan of, I had made it a point that I am 100% straight up 6 o'clock. I don't stay out to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't carouse around. I'm not an idiot. I don't get drunk and drunken stupor, because that, my friends, people see that. I've had more people come to me and say, did you see so-and-so last night? Did you see what was going on last night? And believe it or not, that is huge when it comes to as part of a reflection on your brand. And I think that it's important. When I had my company, I made it clear to my to my staff, when you go, I expect you to have a good time. I expect you to enjoy yourself. But remember one thing, you represent this company 24/7. When you're on your own, you do your thing, but you represent this company 24/7, because my brand, and folks, your brand, is very important to help you sustain and grow a business that's going to be successful. When it comes to your follow through, when you say you're going to do something, do you do it? That reflects on your brand. Your messaging, as we talked about here earlier, the way you market your company. Are you marketing yourself, and you're trying to set yourself at such a level where people look at you and go, this person is innovative and different and creative? And I know that some of you are probably saying, my God, will he just stop talking about that? But here again, the more we get, we're getting people, I mean, it's not as, I don't think it's as prevalent in the Australasian market, but here in the States, it's like every time you turn around, there's 200 more people selling promo products. And then we have the Amazons of the world, and the Costco's, and the Staples. I mean, we have all these people, and not so much Staples, but all these entities, Walmart, for God's sakes, that are selling promo products now. So how do you separate yourself from the crowd? How do you do things differently? What is your messaging and your marketing? What are your actions, as we talked about? Character, too, really speaks volumes about your brand. So when we talk about our deliverables and follow through, Customer service to the very end of the sale and beyond is a total reflection on your brand. You need to be professional, supportive, efficient, helpful, friendly, all those things that go into great customer service. But you can't rely on customer service as being the only moniker that you hang your hat on. It has to be more than that. What you claim is that what they get. We've talked about this many times in past webinars about how people are constantly bragging about free this and free that, and double back this and triple back that if you can find it cheaper, and all that's great, but that's a reflection on their brand. When I think about people that are willing to do it, at cost plus 5%, or people that are saying we'll double the difference back, those people, their brand is all about inexpensive, cheap, doing it on the fly. And I just encourage people not to think like that as you move forward. So again, your deliverables, what they get, how they get it, how it's received, even things like what type of care do you take to find out what your customers are thinking. I know when I had my marketing company, we would send out with every order a survey, just a brief survey. How was the product received? Was the salesperson knowledgeable, polite, and whatnot? We want you to be candid with your responses because that's the only way we're going to improve. How did the imprint look on that? So the reason I did that was not only to help lift my staff to try to find out how we could do things better, but I would utilize those tools where I could go back to my vendors and say, hey, by the way, great job. This is the survey we did on this particular product, because we wanted our suppliers to know when they did exceptionally well and where they potentially fell down, so that we could collectively, lift that ship, if you will. It was very important to us. And I think that a lot of times we kind of fall short of understanding how what we do in this business and how we work with our supplier companies, how that can potentially hurt our brand as well. I remember working a trade show when I owned the headwear company and watching some people walk down the show floor, and they were just like gathering catalogs and just scooping stuff off the table. And my perception of that person or those people, because that happened, it was very prevalent, my perception of them was not very good. And I can tell you from a lot of my peers around, it was not very good as well. So again, it really is important for you to look at how you do things, how you represent yourself, because as silly as it may sound, and we get caught up, as I said earlier, we're so busy that we get caught up, we don't think about these things, but the reality is it definitely affects your brand. It's important for you to keep that in mind. So here's another thing. Sometimes you might want to take a look at a rebrand. And I'm talking about just from a fresh look. I know during the time I had my company, I probably kept the name of the company, but I changed the look of the brand probably 3 or 4 times in about 11 or 12 years. Some of the modifications were very simplistic, and some of them were more drastic. So as I mentioned to you earlier, if you're going to take a look at this, your brand, and maybe you want to dress it up or make it a little bit more modern, heck, in some cases, you may even want to think about changing the name of the company or a different tagline that would be more representative of what you are currently and what you do. Companies do it all the time. You have to be strategic in how you launch that and push it out to people, but it is important. So here's an example. If you'd like a great resource, if you're looking to do a rebrand, there's a company, I put it here, called Logo Tournament. So it's www.logotournament.com. And for the record, I don't get anything for sharing this with you. I just think it's a phenomenal resource. I've used it several times, and I've probably had 30 or 40 of my clients use this as well. But at Logo Tournament, you can actually go in and you fill out like a 3 or 4 page questionnaire. You put X number of dollars into an escrow account, and then you launch this tournament. And then graphic designers from around the world will take that 3 to 4 pages of information that you've laid out in terms of color, look, feel, what your message is, what you do. You know, do you want this to be a conservative look, or do you want it to be fun and edgy, etc.? And then these artists from around the world will say, okay, well, you have like $300 in there. Okay, I'm in. And so what will happen is you schedule this tournament, and over a period of about, let's say you do it for 2 weeks, you'll get artists from all over the world that'll actually buy in to send designs and logos to you. In one case, I had a buddy of mine that actually had done this, and he put, I think, $400 on the tournament and had over 250 designs come to him that he had to choose from. Now, what's unique about it is you can go back and you can tell certain artists, I like this aspect and this aspect, but could you change this and switch the colors? And they'll come back to you. But once the tournament's over, you can say, okay, I love that design and that's the one I want. They'll turn around and give you the high-res and low-res electronic versions of that, both in EPS, JPEG, and PDF, and also in black and white. And then the money is released to that particular individual. If you do the tournament and decide, you know what, I hate all of these designs, what will happen is you just pay a mere $50, and then you can back out of the tournament. But I will tell you that I've never had anybody that I've worked with that's used this turn it down. What's really interesting is I have one client that I work with regularly. She uses this now when she's helping her clients rebrand. She actually will take the design and tell them that it's $1,000 to do a redesign on the logo, and she turns around and she will load it up to, she asks the questions that are on the sheet, turns it over to the logo tournament, and then will pull the top 10 designs down for her prospect or client to choose from. And she uses this as a profit center for herself. So again, really important, not important to do it, but if you choose to do it, this is a phenomenal resource that you can do. And, you know, again, I'm very sympathetic to this and very understanding that we get so busy doing what we do every single day that we don't take time to do this. And I do encourage you to do it, because the big companies do it, why shouldn't we do it? And sometimes I think it even invigorates us as business owners and to really step it up a little bit and do things a little bit different. So again, you can consider that. Here's some examples of some rebrands. I mean, if you look at over the years, Pepsi-Cola. Now Coca-Cola hasn't done it, but Pepsi-Cola since 1898 all the way up to today, you can see how their brand has changed almost 11 times. But it's consistent, it tries to stay consistent with the times. If you look at Apple, Southwest Airlines, look at Mercedes-Benz from 2007 to current, it has made those modifications and changes. So once again, I put this slide in here just to say that if the big boys are doing it, then maybe it's something that we should consider to do as well. I'm a big fan and a big believer of this. So here's a good example. I have a friend of mine, Linda Miller Cedar. She's one of my clients, and she has done remarkable work in moving her business forward. But it's interesting, if you look at this logo, name of her company is Innovative Promotional Concepts. Now, I spoke about this at Convex, so this may be, if you saw any of my presentations, this may spark a reminder. But she came to me and she said, Cliff, what do you think of my logo and my brand? I said, well, the company name's okay, but if I look at your logo, I'm thinking, what do you do? And she says, what do you mean, what do I do? I said, you have IPC with some water rings around that. I said, I'm trying to determine what that is. If I only sold that logo by itself, what would I think? She goes, well, what do you think it means? I said, I would think that you're some type of water company. You do water softening, you do something. I have no idea. She goes, it's supposed to mean that IPC creates ideas that spread. I said, Linda, seriously, do you think that people are going to take the time to think about that? That's very confusing. So Linda went to work and she filled out, and I guess she bought into the concept. And you would really have to know her a little bit to know the type of person that she is. But she's a very polished individual. She's very sharp. And this was not representative of her, of who she was. When she'd walk in the door and somebody would see this, it just wouldn't be the same. So what we did was we went to Logo Tournament and we created this. And to me, this is much cleaner and more representative of her brand. And she loves it. She's even taken it to the point where she's done note cards, so you can see how everything is just consistent in terms of the brand. When you think back to that compared to that, folks, it's night and day. It's actually night and day difference. And again, she has told me on several occasions how better she feels about communicating her brand, giving away her card, merchandise that she has her brand on. It's just more reflective and very, I don't want to say state of the art, but it just looks so much better than she had in the past. So again, something for you to keep in mind. Here's some other methods to tell your story. Oh, I'm a big believer, and if you want to tell a story, a lot of people are not keen on necessarily doing video because they don't feel good about it or whatever, but this is a program that I helped Linda write this script, and this is just, if I could tell you, this is almost like a PowerPoint on steroids with a voiceover. You could go to Fiverr, Fiverr, you could find any number of people that could do this for you at a very inexpensive cost, but this is one of the things that she now posts on her YouTube and Vimeo channel, and also has it on her website. But this video, and it's about 2 minutes, I'm going to share it with you, really tells her story. Hang on one second. I don't know that you can actually hear that, but I do apologize. I don't think you can hear that, but if you can just take a look at it, this is just as you're seeing this go on, this is a voiceover where she's basically telling a story about her company. She's talking about how the marketing dollars are spent, getting a return on investment. But again, we talk about the marketing challenges and the goals of the company and their target audience. And again, this is her actual voiceover. She talks about, maybe a promotional product may be the right thing, but what if you were to integrate products with copy and graphics and packaging and a well thought out theme to really create something that was unique and different? So her whole idea and concept here is about driving measurement, increasing her sales. And she talks about, strategies with mobile marketing and things of that nature. But again, she tells a unique story with video, and again, very inexpensive to put together, but it really does tell a unique story and enhances her brand. So when we start talking about your marketing speaks volume about your brand, it also is reflective on helping customers with theirs as well. Let me give you a couple examples here. I have a friend of mine who, once again, is a client that her name of her company is Big Fish Branding. Now, she came to me and she said, Cliff, I've got this idea that I want to use a foam tray. And in this foam tray, what I'd like to do is I'd like to put some promotional products and seal it and send it out. So she said, would you mind critiquing it? I said, no, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. So when she brought it to me, there was a lanyard, some lip balm, I think a keychain, a pencil, a pen. And she says, what do you think? I said, Cindy, seriously, this is ridiculous. You're smarter than that, and you're better than that. It's just a bunch of stuff thrown inside of a foam tray with some shrink wrap around it. I said, take the time for a minute to think about your name, what it is you do, how that would create a compelling message. So it's exactly what she did. She went back and we talked about how do we create something that would be unique and memorable. As you can see here, this looks like a sushi tray. There's two fortune cookies in there. That looks like what's chopsticks in there actually are two pens. What looks like a sushi roll is actually a compressed t-shirt that she had put in there, and it's all shrink wrap. But what's unique and brings this whole thing together is that she talks about the big fish branding facts that you see as a label that goes on this particular piece. She talks about 100%, 110% freshness, creativity, reliability. And then she tells a story based on a typical job through Big Fish branding. And she tells this whole story that we help you get your attention, catch us, using great verbiage throughout the whole piece to really bring it full circle. What she did before would have gotten her nowhere. What she did with this actually got her over an 80% response rate when she targeted specific prospects, and she won an international award for this particular piece. Now, the award is, I think, like icing on the cake. But at the end of the day, it is different. This is about her brand, not a bunch of crap thrown into a foam tray with some shrink wrap around it that says this is the kind of stuff that we do. But no, I want something to get in the door. I want people to see. I want somebody to correlate with what name of my company, Big Fish Branding, with what we do. And this is a phenomenal example of how you can do the exact same thing, creating things that are unique, different, and unusual, compelling, memorable, and engaging that are going to get customers to stop and take notice. But again, so when we start talking about the marketing of our company and the things that we do, is the marketing consistent? Are we telling people that we are unique and different? Are we fresh, creative, reliable, and all these different things, but yet we put a pen, a pencil, a keychain, a lanyard, and some lip balm and shrink wrap it and send it out and cross our fingers and pray that the person's going to say, wow, this is pretty cool. Maybe I'll buy some of these. In this day and age, we are up against the wall in terms of competition. What makes me want to pay you a single dime for anything that you do? What is it about your brand that sets you apart, that makes you look unique and different, that's going to be compelling, that I want to say, I need to work with this organization? And in this particular case, this really tells a unique story about Cindy's company. What they deliver, a blurb on the company, where the contact information of the company. It is clever, it's memorable, award-winning, and totally unique. And guess what? Here's what's interesting. There's not one of you on this call, not one of you, that can't do the same thing, that can't create things that are brilliant and unique, and that things that reflect on your brand in a very positive way, beyond just the product. So if you think about the consistency, and that's the thing that you want to walk away from today with this webinar, is that your brand has to be consistent. And it has to be memorable and engaging and unique and different. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the clutter. The more people that infuse into your space that are selling product and stuff and are just I call them the knick-knack macks of the world, the adult trick-or-treaters of the world. You need to do things that will separate you from the pack. You have to do that. So here's another great case history, and I know you've all seen this. You know, a lot of people will hand out a Swiss Army knife, but how do you do things a little bit differently? How do you tell people? I don't want to throw the cat out of the bag, but Robert Williams and I are working on a brilliant marketing campaign for him that will be off the chain. And Robert, I'm sorry if I threw you under the bus on this one, but at the end of the day, we want to do things that are different. There was a great book out by a gentleman called, his name is Roger Von Oak, called A Whack on the Side of the Head. And he talked about how do you compare two unlike objects to create something that's different, so that's compelling. And in this particular case, I know many of you have seen this, I've used this particular piece, this Swiss Army knife, and we did a parody on each of the functions of the knife and how it related to me as a salesperson or to you as a salesperson. So I'm going to get back to this in a second, but remember I told you the story about what R&D is? I mean, yeah, R&D, it's not research and development, it's rip off and duplicate. If you like this, take it and use it for yourself. Create something that's different and unique. Everybody if somebody called me up when I was a distributor and say, I'm not a product guy. I can help you with product if you want, but where you get the most mileage out of me is if I can help take product and packaging and creativity, because that's what I talk about. I'm creative. That's what my website says. That's what my social media talks about. That's what my business card says. We're innovative and creative marketing company. We're not the promotional products people. If you want me to get you a product, yeah, I can do that. But you're not utilizing me for the full mileage that you can get out of our company, bottom line. In this particular case, this piece generated 137 prospects. We had an 84% response rate to this piece when we just told a story about who we were. We just wanted to open the door of opportunity. How do people perceive you when you do something like this? There was a gentleman that received this and read an article that I wrote about this. He's the largest roof truss manufacturer in the entire United States. He said to me, I would love to work with you. I said, well, I don't do that anymore now. I'm actually just a writer, a speaker, and consultant. He goes, I have $1 million budget for this type of marketing. Are you interested now? Well, obviously there was a long pause, thinking maybe I should get back into this. But the reality was there was other people that I could turn him over to that did the exact same thing as I do. But this is what's different. This is an intro to my company. This is unique. And this talks about my brand, what I do, who I am, and how I can help you and propel your business in the same manner. So again, when we start looking at the things that we're doing and the messaging that we're pushing out there, if you're creative, then by God, you better do things creative. If you say you're innovative and different, then you better do things that are different, because otherwise, my friends, you will be perceived as the same as everyone else. Be first. Technology is certainly driving our market, and I look at that you constantly have to be reinventing. That doesn't mean that you have to destroy everything that you've built, but oftentimes you need to kind of look at every aspect of your business, and sometimes you just have to lift certain areas. The Japanese refer to this as Kaizen. So it's very important, and we'll get into that in a second. But again, technology is driving our market. Look at the innovation and creativity that's being offered in this space right now, and use that to your advantage. Understand your market, understand your market in detail, and then reinvent yourself. We're no longer driving around on concrete tires, as you can tell. Become a specialist. This is another way to enhance your brand. I talk about this all the time. You look at any industry, medical industry, the building and construction industry, the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry is noted here. There are people at the bottom end I shouldn't say bottom end, I don't mean that as a degradation, but there are people that sell the product, and then there's masters that actually, like my friend Hubert Keller here, the executive chef at Fleur in Vegas, that take the raw material and they make magic out of that. I encourage you to become, in your space, the chef of what you do, the architect, the brain surgeon of your space, because those are the folks that make the best and highest profits. Think about that. Become a specialist and enhance that brand at that level, and you will indeed own that space and make higher profits. The things that define you. Willie Jolly told me in when he talked to me about my website, he says, Quicksell, you are your brand, not your logo, although that's important because that's an identifier. But at the end of the day, you are your brand, your character, your loyalty, your business acumen, the things that you bring to the table, that is your brand. Those are the things that define you. Your staff is a reflection of your brand as well. So it's important that they're on board as well. Your clients oftentimes will either enhance your brand because they'll reiterate to others what it is that you do, how what you say, what you do, how you act, your response to them, how you engage, what you deliver. All of those things are the things that actually define who your brand are. The other stuff, the material stuff, is important. It really is. But these things are also equally important as well. So again, I encourage you to take time to reflect on this. A few final thoughts, and then if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them, or if you want to send them to me via email, you can do that as well. But I said this to you on the onset. Print out all your information. Take all your collateral material, print out your website, pages of your website, and just lay it out. And take the time to be honest with yourself and say, and look for inconsistencies. Balance, color, spacing, the messaging, all of those things. And at the end of the day, folks, it's not too late to revamp if you find inconsistencies. I will throw this out to you as well. If anybody wants me to have a look at their all the things that we talked about here today, if you want to send me photos of it, I'm happy to give you my professional critique on this. I'm happy to do it. But again, I think it's important for you to consider doing this just to ensure that your brand is consistent. And I mean everything. I would encourage you actually to set brand standards for your company as well. How your logo can be used, PMS colors, everything. And you should have that in some type of binder. And that should be something that is used consistently throughout your business, whether you're a solopreneur or if you have multiple people in your organization. Everyone should be on board with that. So that's the end of the presentation today on Your Brand Speaks Volumes. If you haven't connected with me on my website, please feel free to do so and sign up for my blog. I'd appreciate it. And if you have any questions at this point, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks very much for that, Cliff. I can't see any questions at this time, but I know we do get some popping up later on. So as Cliff said, if you do have any questions for him or would like some feedback, his details are on the screen, or alternatively, you can also contact myself or anybody in the APPA team. Now, Cliff will be doing one more webinar with us next month, so we're just finalising those details, and they'll be made available to our members in the next week or so. Tomorrow you will receive a follow-up email with a link to view today's recording and also the slides. So Cliff, thank you so much again, and thank you for all our participants for joining us today, and hopefully see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you very much. Good day.